box coming up, and I'm like, why is this man, like, fish thing look like it's been swimming in glitter glue? Just in the last 2 weeks, a new movie landed on Shudder that happens to be inspired by my favourite of the classic Universal monsters, which is, if you aren't familiar with my channel, Creature from the Black Lagoon. I love Gillman, I love a fish-human hybrid monster, so of course I was gonna get round to eventually watching Monster Island. But if you don't know anything about Monster Island from 2025, let me quickly fill you in. Monster Island from 2025 is a historical creature feature horror. Set in the Pacific 1942, a Japanese soldier and a British prisoner of war are stranded on a deserted island, hunted by a deadly creature. Two mortal enemies must come together to survive the unknown. If you're new here, I'm Hannah, but I go by Hordes Online, and I am the head of the Horde here on my channel, Hordes of Horror. And if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, but as always, when it comes to watching movies that I've never seen before, I'm now going to go and watch Monster Island off camera, so that way if you too want to watch this new creature feature inspired by Creature from the Black Lagoon, nothing will be spoiled for you, because nobody wants to watch a movie that you've just watched somebody else watch from start to finish, because then you're going to know exactly what happens. And I keep it spoiler free here on my channel, because nobody, and I mean nobody, likes spoilers.
Fish, big fish!
I'm gonna get to it, but I need to know why they decided to make this new Gillman sparkly. Like, is he related to the Twilight vampires? Like, why does he sparkle in the sun?
Sparkly.
Let's talk about the plot. This movie takes place in May of 1942, and it starts off with a Japanese soldier slash sailor on a boat. He is chained to a British war prisoner, and he is being escorted back to Japan because basically he's done something and the Japanese army are like, no, 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 you are now going to go back to Japan and we're going to make an example out of you so nobody else decides to do the things that you've done. You don't know exactly what he's done at the beginning of the movie. It is revealed right towards the end of the movie, and all of a sudden the boat is attacked by, I think they are British fighter pilots, that you don't really see the planes in enough detail, and I don't know anything really about warplanes to be able to tell you, but I am going to assume that they are British fighter pilots, and I will explain why in a little bit. From here, these two prisoners who are chained together wash up on the shores of a deserted island, and they are suddenly attacked by a new version of Gillman, aka Creature from the Black Lagoon, and the two of them have to like work together to get themselves unchained and survive and try and escape the island, while realising that they might not be the only survivors of this boat that have washed up on this island, and that's where we'll leave the basic plot. It's your classic shipwrecked, and there happens to be a creature on the island. The Brit is called Bronson. I have never met a Bronson in my entire life. If somebody said to me, where is somebody called Bronson from? I'd say America. He is your typical, like, loud and arrogant kind of soldier. I'm allowed to say it being a Brit myself. He's annoying as all hell. And he is chained to Sato, who is the Japanese soldier, and he is your, like, silent but deadly kind of soldier. This plot feels very much like a draft for a Predator movie that didn't make it out of the original draft stage.
Hell no!
There is a scene in this, minor spoiler, just a tiny, tiny minor spoiler, where at one point Bronson the Brit wakes up next to a full-blown crocodile. And the crocodile is like, I kid you not, he's like 6 inches away from this thing. This croc just leaves him alone and crawls off down into the river. I'm like, no, that's not how it would work. Like, as somebody who's a massive fan of crocs, if a croc looks at something and it is smaller than the croc and they think they can win, they're like, dinner. So realistically, this wouldn't happen, and I get it. You need the croc to still be there when it fights the Gillman-inspired creature thing at some point. But no, Bronson should have been eaten at that point, and yeah, I think that would have been better.
Delicious.
Now, some of you may be asking, why should we care about this? Well, this movie just says it's set in the Pacific, and I wanted a bit more than that, because that doesn't do it for me. Random ocean A and random island B is not enough for me. So I decided to go away and do a little bit of digging, because it turns out there are actually crocs in the Pacific. They are in a 3,800 mile square radius between Fuji and India and China and Australia. Now, this sort of narrows it down a little bit as to where this movie is potentially set, but this wasn't enough for me. So I went away and looked up this movie is based on a folklore. This folklore is actually a Malay folklore, which immediately puts us in Malaysia. Now, back in 1941, Malaysia wasn't called Malaysia, it was actually called British Malaya, and it was taken over by Japan in 1942 and held until 1945. So this movie is actually set in Malaysia. So, you may be asking, again, Hannah, why do we need to know this? And the answer to that is simple. I got bored while watching this movie, and the last thing you want is for me to get bored when watching your movie, because I'm going to spend my time pointlessly looking up online where this movie is supposed to be set. And it turns out as well that Malaysia does in fact have crocodiles. It has two types. It has saltwater and Siamese, which means that I am correct in where this movie is set.
Enough. The lesson is over.
Japan actually decided that they were going to occupy Malaysia as part of their, joint thing that they did when they attacked Pearl Harbor, which would explain why there are British troops as well as other troops stationed in the area, because at the end of the movie, more troops turn up to sort of assist, we'll say. Now, while I say that I was bored at certain parts of this movie, there are a lot of action sequences in this, and the action sequences are what actually keep this movie interesting. There's a lot of fight sequences, there's a lot of, soldier versus soldier, and soldier versus fishman, and fishman versus crocodile at one point, which no way would that croc have lost a fight in the real life. That croc is enormous, and it would have consumed a gill man absolutely whole. So no, I'm not buying that fight. But like I said, they're the best part of this movie. They do keep the pacing going. But everything that isn't a fight sequence in this movie is painfully slow and incredibly boring, which means that this entire movie has a stop-start pacing going on. I just wish that they had made these two soldiers some kind of interesting to make me care about what was going on. You're not supposed to watch a creature feature movie and be like, yay, go creature thing. That's exactly what I was doing. That's I wouldn't mind if everyone got killed by the fishmen, which looked like something out of Doctor Who. I'm going to pull them up technically for one thing as well, and that is this movie is incredibly dark. And I don't mean the subject matter, I mean that the nighttime sequences in this movie are so dark, I had to stop and actually fiddle around with my telly settings at one point. I had to increase the backlight, I had to turn up the brightness, just to make sure that parts of this movie were visible. It is very dark, and then in the daytime sequences are very bright.
My eyes!
I like the creature design in this, and I'm going to go on record and say I quite like a kind of fish-human hybrid monster in things. I get it, it's been going on since literally the 20s and 30s and 40s. I don't care. Gillman is my favourite of the creatures from the classic Universal monsters, so I'm never going to be mad at something that wants to take inspiration from my boy Gillman. Now, the thing is, he is scaly looking as you would expect, but at one point the sun hits him when he's in a river and he sparkles like he's made of emeralds. And I'm like, why is this man, fish thing look like it's been swimming in glitter glue? I don't mind an old school, clearly man in a suit kind of creature, which is what this is. I like that they have taken inspiration from a humpback anglerfish for its face. I think most people will be familiar with an anglerfish, but a humpback anglerfish is ever so slightly different. It has obviously a hump at the back of its head that leads down its back, and it has got a more dominant underbite, which means that its teeth, which are again sharp and spiky like a regular anglerfish, are much more on show, and it gives a sort of bulldog effect. If you've ever looked at a French bulldog or an English bulldog that's got a really big underbite, it's got the same kind of chin as a humpback anglerfish. There is a parallel universe version of me that is a marine biologist somewhere, and there's another one that works with alligators. I'm convinced at this point, because my brain just seems to hold on to all of these useless facts that nobody else seems to know.
Scooby-Doo, take note.
In the end, I am actually going to give Monster Island from 2025 a 2.5. It's between a 2 and a 2.5, but I'm going to be generous because I liked about half the plot of this. I liked all the action sequences, I liked things blowing up and things being set on fire, and I like the fact that, you know, there's lots and lots of these fight sequences, but unfortunately all the dialogue scenes in the middle were boring as hell, and as you can tell from this video, I got to do a lot of research on my phone while I was bored watching those parts. I like the design of the creature, I like that it's based on an actual sort of deep sea fish, and if you've got any kind of knowledge of this, you'll be able to spot it from a mile off. But yeah, it's fine. It's not the best creature feature movie that I've seen in a while, but it's also not the worst creature feature movie that I have seen in a while either. But my opinion isn't the only one that matters, which begs the question, should you personally watch Monster Island from 2025? If you like your horror movies flavoured with World War plots, tropical locations, old school creature feature effects, explosions and fire, or anything that is listed here, then you will probably like Monster Island from 2025. So there you have it, my initial thoughts and my review for my first time watching Monster Island from 2025. If you've also seen this movie, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are on it down in the comment section down below. And if you are interested in watching this one, as always, there'll be a link to justwatch.com in the description bar so you can find out where it is streaming in your country. Here in the UK, it is a Shudder exclusive. If you would like to know where else you can find me, I am also over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror, where I post every single horror movie that I watch, not just the ones that I talk about here on YouTube. But speaking of YouTube, I'll be back on Monday, and this time with another recommendations list, because I'm doing a little mini-series here that will eventually lead up to something that I have planned for the end of September. So the next recommendations list that will be coming, that I have a love-hate relationship with, is 8 movies that I think that you should watch on Plex, because they've got some good movies, but damn, they take the piss with the amount of adverts they put on. So I want to know if I'm sitting through the adverts, that the movie is actually worth watching. So until next time, bye. A special thank you though to my regenerators here within the Horde for their support over on Patreon.